I just found out my wife of 10 years secretly siphoned $250, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with her affair partner, and now she's threatening legal action over the property. I thought I knew everything, but the betrayal runs deeper than I ever imagined. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife of 10 years turned out to be a complete liar and cheat. Honestly, I thought we had a solid marriage, a good life. We had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing that seemed insurmountable, until I found out the truth about her affair. That moment hit me like a freight train, and what made it worse was that it wasn't just about cheating. It was about how she stole $250,000 from our joint account to buy a house with her lover. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a soap opera, but I swear this is real life. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Mike and I married right out of college. We met in our early 20s, fell hard, and somehow managed to build what I thought was a happy life. We bought a house, had 2 kids, and I thought we were in it for the long haul. But over the last year, I started noticing little things. She was more secretive with her phone, always keeping it close, deleting texts and calls. She'd go out with friends more often, but I'd catch her sneaking around or lying about where she was. Small stuff at first, but enough to make me uneasy. Still, I trusted her. I mean, she was my wife. We had a bond, didn't we? Then came the night I found the bank statements. I was just checking our online account out of habit, nothing unusual until I saw it. A transfer of $250, $0 from our joint savings. My stomach dropped. I clicked through the details. It was labeled house purchase, but I knew that couldn't be right. I didn't remember her mentioning any new house, and she'd been acting weird lately, avoiding my questions. I called the bank and they confirmed it was her who authorized the transfer. That's when everything changed. I sat there, heart pounding, trying to process what I was looking at. How could she do this? How could she steal that much money without telling me? I started digging deeper, checking her phone, her emails, her social media. That's when I found the messages, flirty texts, suggestive photos, plans for a new life with someone I'd never heard of before. His name was Jake. She'd been meeting him in secret, lying to me about her business trips and girls' nights. She was having an affair, and she used the money I worked hard for to buy her own little dream house with her lover. I couldn't believe it. All those years, all those promises, and she was out there screwing around behind my back. The betrayal was so deep I felt physically ill. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I needed to think first. I didn't want to blow up and say something I'd regret. Still, I knew I had to face her. She was hiding something, and I needed answers. The next day, I waited until she came home from work. She looked tired, a little too calm, which made my stomach churn even more. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, about everything. Her reaction was a mix of anger, denial, and that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was in control. She told me I was overreacting, that it was none of my business, and that I was paranoid. She said she was trying to fix us, that she loved me but needed something more. Yeah, right. That was the moment I realized I was dealing with someone who was capable of lying and manipulating me without batting an eye. I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a sickening sense of helplessness. How could she do this? How could she steal from us, lie to my face, and then act like I was the crazy one? I was furious, but underneath that I felt crushed. All those years of trust gone in an instant. I wanted to smash something, scream at her, make her feel what I was feeling. But I also knew I had to keep my head clear. I couldn't let her see me break. I had to figure out what to do next. After that confrontation, I honestly didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept circling back to everything I'd uncovered. The money, the lies, her cold reaction when I called her out. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to what was happening right under my nose. The worst part was knowing she had been planning this for who knows how long, siphoning off our savings, lying every step of the way. I felt betrayed not just as her husband but as a partner who had trusted her with everything. The next morning, I decided I couldn't just sit around and stew in my anger. I needed to get real answers, so I started planning my move. First, I called a lawyer, someone who specialized in family law and financial crimes. I wanted to understand my rights, what I could do legally, and how to protect what was mine. When I explained everything, the lawyer's voice was calm but firm. She told me I had a strong case for both divorce and financial restitution, but I needed to gather concrete evidence. I also asked about the house, since was threatening legal action over it, and she warned me that if she was claiming ownership, I'd need proof that it was bought with our joint funds. I started digging through our bank statements more thoroughly, carefully marking every transaction. Some of it went to her credit cards, some to her secret accounts, and a hefty chunk, like I said, $250, $0, was transferred directly into an account connected to her lover, Jake. That was the real punch in the gut. She'd been funneling money into his account for months, maybe longer. I was stunned. How could she be so reckless, so selfish? Meanwhile, kept up her act. She was still acting like everything was fine, throwing fits when I questioned her, calling me paranoid. She'd say I was overreacting, that I was controlling, that I didn't trust her. She was good at twisting words, making me doubt myself. She even accused me of being jealous, of not wanting her to have a life outside of me. That was her usual tactic: deflect, deny, blame me, but I knew better. I wasn't paranoid, I'd seen the proof. The messages, the bank transfers, the way she'd been sneaking around. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I arranged to meet her in a neutral place, our favorite coffee shop, under the guise of wanting to talk things through. I wanted her to slip up, to show her true colors. When she arrived, she looked tense but tried to act normal. I laid out the evidence, showed her the bank statements, the messages, the account info. Her face paled and she started stammering, trying to come up with excuses. She told me she was trying to fix our marriage, that she'd made a mistake, that it was all a misunderstanding. She said she loved me but needed her freedom, her happiness, and that she didn't think I'd understand. I felt a surge of rage. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I told her I wasn't stupid, that I knew about Jake, about the money, about everything. I asked her flat out if she thought I was some idiot who wouldn't find out. Her eyes flickered with guilt, but she quickly recovered, throwing a tantrum about how I was controlling and jealous. She said I was just insecure, that I did trust her because I was afraid of losing her. But the truth was, I was already losing myself trying to hold this marriage together. Her lies, her cheating, her theft, it was all too much. That day I realized how deep her deception ran. It wasn't just about the affair or the money. It was about her complete disregard for what we had built together. Her selfishness knew no bounds. She was willing to destroy everything for her own pleasure, her own escape. I couldn't believe I'd been so naive for so long. I started questioning everything I thought I knew about her, about us. And I knew at that moment I had to decide what was best for me and my kids. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was normal. The pain was real, but so was the clarity. She was not the person I thought she was. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, emotional exhaustion, and trying to keep my head above water. I spent hours poring over bank statements, emails, and text messages, trying to piece together exactly how long she'd been planning this. The more I looked, the clearer it became, had been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. She siphoned off that money gradually, hiding it in secret accounts, funneling it into Jake's hands. And now she was threatening to fight me over the house, claiming she had every right to it because she bought it with her own money, even though I knew damn well she used our joint savings. The most infuriating thing was her constant lying. She kept insisting she'd made mistakes, that she was sorry, but I could see through her bullshit. She was a bitch about it, accusing me of being controlling, jealous, insecure. She'd throw tantrums, cry, and then turn around and act like the victim. I realized she'd been gaslighting me from the start, twisting everything around so I'd doubt myself. I wasn't going to let her do that anymore. I had concrete proof, and I was ready to fight for what was ours. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with a lawyer present. I wanted her to see I was serious. So I set up a meeting at her office where I laid out everything: the evidence, the bank transfers, her messages, her lies. She looked stunned at first, then furious. She tried to deny everything, calling me paranoid and possessive. She said I was overreacting, that she loved me, and that I was just jealous because she was beautiful and successful. That was her usual line, trying to make me feel guilty, as if I was the bad guy for catching her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done being manipulated, that I knew she'd been cheating and stealing from us, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I was going to take her to court over the house and the money. Her face turned red and she snapped at me, saying I was ruining her life, that I was trying to control her and punish her for having feelings. I felt a cold rage boil inside me. I didn't care what she thought anymore. All I cared about was protecting my kids and making sure she couldn't keep pulling her bullshit. The thing is, I'd always believed in fairness, in doing the right thing, but this experience shattered that idea. She had no morals, no loyalty. All her lies, all her manipulation, they added up to one thing. She was a master at deception, and I'd been a fool for trusting her so blindly. Now I was determined to fight back, even if it meant tearing our entire life apart. I knew she'd try to spin it, try to turn everyone against me, but I didn't care. I had the evidence and I was ready to expose her. Meanwhile, she kept trying to charm her way out of it, acting like she was the victim. She'd cry, scream, accuse me of ruining her happiness. She even threatened legal action over the house, claiming she had the right to it because she'd paid for it in her own way. I knew she was bluffing, but her threats made me realize how far she'd go to save herself. She was desperate and I could see her unraveling. I knew I had to stay calm, stay firm, and let the law do its job. Honestly, I never thought I'd be in this situation. I thought I knew her, but now I see I was living with someone who was capable of lying, stealing, and betraying me in ways I never imagined. It's a horrible feeling, feeling so betrayed by the person you trusted most. But I also know I can't fix what's broken. All I can do now is protect what's left, get justice, and try to move forward. It's going to be a long road, but I'm done being the fool. The legal battle started faster than I expected. I hired a good lawyer, and she warned me that threats over the house were just her way of stalling, trying to buy time or manipulate the situation in her favor. But I had the evidence, bank transfers, the secret account, the texts, and I knew I had a solid case. Still, it was a gut-wrenching process watching her lie in court, twisting her words, trying to make me look like the villain. I could see her bitchy smirk whenever she thought she was winning, but I wasn't about to let her get away with this. The lawyer tried to argue that she had independent rights to the house because she'd used her own money to buy it. That was a lie. She used our joint savings, which I had documented thoroughly. I brought out the bank statements, the transfer records, and the emails where she discussed her plans with Jake. It was clear she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The judge saw through her bullshit, and I could tell he was annoyed at her evasiveness. Meanwhile, kept up her act, crying and saying she was the victim of my controlling ways. She claimed I was abusive, that I'd never let her have her freedom, that I was jealous and paranoid. I just sat there, listening to her spin her web of lies, feeling an almost numb rage. If she thought I was going to let her manipulate her way out of this, she was dead wrong. I knew her game now. She lied, cheated, stole, and now she was trying to twist the story to make me look like the bad guy. The worst part was seeing how she tried to turn the kids against me. She'd tell them I was mean, controlling, that I didn't love them. That was the part that cut the deepest. I've always been a good dad, doing everything I could for those kids. But now I had to watch her poison their minds, even as I fought to keep our family intact. It made me realize how much she was willing to do to keep her lies hidden, even if it meant tearing our family apart. But I refused to be pushed around. I filed for divorce, and the court officially recognized that she had no legal claim to the house. That was a relief, but it didn't erase the damage she'd caused. The money she stole, the betrayal, the way she'd lied to everyone. I knew this was far from over. I was determined to get everything back, to hold her accountable for what she'd done. The judge ordered her to return the money or face penalties, and I felt a small sense of victory. Still, I knew she'd fight me all the way, and I had to prepare for the long haul. Throughout this process, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, heartbreak, but also relief that I was finally taking control. I'd been blind for so long, trusting her blindly, believing in our life together. Now I saw her for what she really was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything for her own happiness, even if it meant destroying everything we built. I kept telling myself I'd be okay, that I had to be strong for my kids, and that someday I'd find peace again. Looking back, I realize how much this has changed me. I used to think marriage was about trust and loyalty, but now I see that sometimes people hide who they really are behind a mask. I've learned not to take anything for granted and to trust my instincts. No more ignoring red flags, no more turning a blind eye to her lies. I've come to understand that sometimes the best thing you can do is fight back, even when it hurts. Because in the end, the truth has a way of coming out, and I refuse to be the one left in the dark. The aftermath of everything was a different kind of chaos. The court case wrapped up, and I finally got a clear title to the house, although the scars of betrayal run deep. Was ordered to pay back the stolen money, but I knew that wouldn't undo what she'd done. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, exhausted and drained, but at the same time a strange sense of relief washed over me. I finally saw her for what she was: nothing more than a manipulative, selfish woman who'd used me and lied for her own gain. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing myself and trying to rebuild what I could with the kids. I realized I'd been so caught up in the chaos of her lies that I'd neglected my own well-being. I started going to therapy, talking through my feelings, trying to process the betrayal. It wasn't easy. Every day was a battle between anger and sadness, between wanting to lash out and wanting to forgive. But I knew I couldn't stay stuck in that place forever. I had to move forward for myself and for my children. One thing that struck me during this process was how much her bitchy attitude and manipulation had affected everyone around her. Even her family, who once thought she was perfect, started seeing her in a different light. They'd always known she was a little dramatic, but now they saw her for what she really was: a liar and a thief. My friends supported me, telling me I deserved better, that I'd been too good for her all along. That helped more than I can say. I also learned a lot about money, how fragile it can be when trust is broken. The whole theft made me realize how important it is to keep a close eye on finances, to never assume someone's intentions are pure. I've become more cautious, more aware of the red flags that I ignored before. I've started saving independently, building my own financial cushion because I don't want to be caught off guard again. That's probably the biggest lesson: trust is earned, not given blindly. Now I'm slowly putting my life back together. I've moved into a new place, away from the chaos and betrayal. The kids are adjusting, and I'm trying to give them stability and love, even if I feel broken inside. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I won't let her or anyone else manipulate me again. I've learned that sometimes the worst pain can lead to the most important lessons. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also makes you realize what truly matters: trust, honesty, and respect. And I won't settle for anything less anymore. Honestly, if I could give anyone one piece of advice, it would be this: pay attention to the small signs. Do. Ignore your gut. If something feels off, dig deeper. People aren't always who they pretend to be. And when you realize someone has betrayed you, whether it's cheating, stealing, or lying, you have to decide whether to fight or walk away. I chose to fight, to stand up for myself and my kids. It's not easy and it hurts like hell, but in the end I know I'll come out stronger. Because the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living in a lie. Looking back now, I realize how much that entire experience changed me. I used to believe in fairy tales about marriage, about trust, loyalty, and that everything would work out if you just loved enough. Turns out, not everyone plays by those rules. Betrayal was a brutal lesson in human nature, but it also forced me to grow stronger and more cautious. I learned to trust myself again, to listen to that little voice inside that warns you when something's off. The pain of her betrayal still lingers, but I've come to accept it as part of my story. It's made me more aware, more resilient. I see now that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most, but that doesn't mean you have to let them define your life. I've rebuilt my confidence, focused on my kids, and started to believe in a future where I can finally feel safe again. There's a strange sense of peace in knowing I did everything I could, fighting for what was right, fighting to protect my family, even when the odds seemed stacked against me. I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting her back. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity. And that's what I've done. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar understands. You're not alone. Trust your instincts, stand your ground, and never let anyone steal your peace. Because in the end, the strongest thing you can do is walk away with your head held high, knowing you fought for yourself and your future.